Have you ever had a goal that you just wanted to reach and you've been wanting to reach it for a long time and you just can never seem to just get it done? Whether it's health, wealth, or whether it's your spiritual life, your walk with Christ, your discipleship, or whatever it might be, you just never seem to be able to get to where you know you need to be, where you should be with those kind of goals and with those things. Well, today, that's what we want to talk about on the For Real Life and Godliness Podcast, the podcast that takes the Word of God and puts it down into the grit of your real life, where you can actually use it. As always, I am your host, Pastor Will, and we'll be right back after this. If you've been listening to the show for any amount of time, you know that this is episode 11, and you know that we drop episodes every Tuesday about 6 o'clock or so. 6 o'clock for 6 o'clock in the morning for Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and then about 4 o'clock in the afternoon for YouTube, just because there are a lot fewer people who watch the videos, which I understand because not everybody has YouTube Premium, and you obviously can't close your phone. So I kind of forget about that because I use so much YouTube that I pay for premium because I use YouTube like religiously. So it's a big part of my life. So I actually pay for it, but I forget that most people don't. So the videos are there for you to watch them. But most of you guys are on Spotify or Apple. But point is, you would know that last week we had nothing, nada, zilch, zero. And that was because I did not do what we're going to talk about today. When I first started this podcast, I knew that the biggest problem that I would encounter would be consistency, right? That's the biggest problem with pretty much any goal and anything that you want to do is consistency, right? And I knew that would be an issue, and I had pre-decided that I would do this no matter what, and I would get through such and such. And we got through 10 episodes without a break, and somehow I wound up sidetracked because I did not plan ahead, did not pre-decide, did not position myself and prioritize properly and put myself in a position to be successful with continuing with episode 11 being on the right day. So you're listening to this, and I'm going to use my failure last week to have a podcast up on time when it was supposed to be as an example, as an illustration to kind of bring out the truth of Proverbs chapter 24, verse 27, which says, prepare your work without, I'm going to translate this a little bit so it makes a little bit more sense. Prepare your work outside, or, without, outside of the place that you're going to do the work at. So your work needs to be set out, your tools or whatever laid out. Prepare your work without, make it fit for yourself in the field, and afterwards build your house. And that's a simple little phrase. But what it's meaning is that you need to have the plan first before you have the building process, right? And obviously here we're talking about building a house, but the idea is transferable. The principle is transferable to any goal you want to accomplish. And a saying I heard this week, which was, it's so simple, but it was really profound to me, was that consistency is better than intensity. And what intensity does, and a lot of us have done this, especially when it comes to, say, working out. A lot of people do this for when it comes to working out in January 1st. Everybody wants to get healthier and lose weight and whatever they want to do. Get their summer body, get that thing started and worked on. And what happens is intensity takes over, and we think intensity is going to take us through. And we listen to go to YouTube or something. We listen to these motivational speakers and these podcasts, and they're like, who's going to carry the boats and all this kind of stuff, right? And we listen to that, and we think intensity is going to keep us going. But reality is intensity only lasts for so long. That's why it's called intensity. If it lasted forever, then it wouldn't be intensity. It'd just be your normal, everyday life. Some people are, constantly intense, but they're the how's that go? They're the exception that proves the rule, basically. But consistency is better than intensity. So you can be really intense and say working out in the beginning of the year, you go out and you buy a bunch of new workout clothes, new workout shoes, you spend like $300 or $400 to buy new clothes, new supplements, healthy food, the gym membership that you're probably going to use 3 times and get tired of it and walk out. And statistics tell us that most people stop their gym membership, or not their gym membership, but stop going to the gym. They give up on their New Year's resolutions, especially when it comes to health and fitness, within the first 3 weeks. I think it's like 80 something percent. I think there's like 13% or something like that actually go through the end of the year. And it's crazy. It's just a crazy number. But it's because we get really intense because we think this is going to happen. We know it's right to do. We know we need to do it, whether it's in health, wealth, or, our spiritual life or whatever it might be. But we don't have plans ahead of time to make sure that those goals actually happen. And that's what Proverbs is saying here. Prepare your work outside of the place where you're going to do the work. Before you get to where the work, the goal, the thing is going to happen, prepare, plan your work. Lay it out. Make it fit for yourself in the field, then build your house. And so you're preparing your tools, you're laying out your goals, you're laying out things that are going to happen. Then you prepare and position yourself in the field. You get everything laid out and ready to go. Then the house is put together. Jesus uses the same idea in Luke 14 when he's talking about counting the cost of being a disciple. He uses the same thing about the building of the tower. He says, the man needs to count if he can even finish the tower before he starts building. Otherwise, he's going to lay the foundation and then figure out, oh man, I ain't got the money to finish this. And he becomes a proverb and they begin to mock him, it says, which essentially means that people are going to make fun of him. It's like he becomes a meme in our terminology today. And so he says, prepare your work outside. Make it fit for yourself in the field. Pre-decide, pre-plan, pre-set up what you're going to do. Right? Find your priorities, know what that level of prioritization needs to be, what is most important, and then find a way that that's going to happen, to make that happen, right? But you have to do it beforehand. So last week, there are other things going on. I was working on my wife's van and doing some stuff there, and I was doing some other things, and I just didn't get back over here on Saturday or Monday because I went fishing Monday. You can see where my priorities are. And I just didn't get it done, right? If I wanted to go fishing on Monday, then I should have planned that Friday afternoon after work, I would shoot an episode, or I would come back Saturday morning and shoot an episode, or Sunday afternoon I would stay after church and shoot an episode, right? There are multiple opportunities for me to accomplish my goal, just like there is for you and your goal. There's multiple opportunities for you to do it, but I didn't prioritize it last weekend, nor did I pre-decide when I would do that. If I want to do A, which is fishing, but I also want to be consistent, then I need to have a plan to do both things, or one of them has to go. And honestly, after losing a 5-pound smallmouth bass that Mike won't let me live down ever in my life at this point, maybe I should have just stayed home. But, whatever. I did get a video of that, and it's, going on my other YouTube channel. And you'll get to watch it swim away as I, crumble in tears. But, I made a decision to go fishing on Sunday, knowing I had not made the video yet. And so I prioritized something over something else that honestly probably was more important to me for consistency's sake. And so I wasn't, consistent with that because I didn't have a plan. I didn't pre-decide. I did something in the moment. On Sunday, I'm like, man, I want to go fishing tomorrow. And that became the top priority rather than, doing what I should have done, which was make the video. And I kind of lied to myself like, oh, I'll just do it, Monday night when I get back from fishing. And obviously I spent like all day and I was tired and did not do that. I didn't do it. And so if you want to accomplish something and be consistent, it's not going to be intensity. It's not going to be just grin and bear it. It's not going to be your willpower or whatever. It's going to be whether or not you've prioritized correctly, and then that you've pre-decided and positioned yourself for success. So what does that look like? If any of you guys don't know a whole lot probably about me necessarily, but I used to build a lot of off-road rigs and off-road trucks, right? I've built Jeeps. I've built a couple other things. My best one probably ever, besides my green Jeep. My green Jeep was pretty legit at the time. Should never got rid of it. I cry about it in my sleep every now and again. But I had a Lexus GX 470, which essentially is a big 4Runner. It oversees, it's called a Prado, Land Cruiser Prado, which is kind of a mini Prado. I don't know what that Prado actually means, but that's what it is. Overseas, it's a Land Cruiser Prado. And over here, they brought it as a Lexus GX 470. Most people didn't know what it was. It's like, that's a Lexus, but people began to find out, man, that's actually a really good vehicle. And I got one before, their prices went through the roof. And I built it, right? But one of the main components, maintenance components, not any of the cool, like suspension and tire stuff that looks cool, but one of the main maintenance things on that is the timing belt, because the belt, not a chain, and the belts obviously dry out and break after time. And so you have so many miles. I think it's 80,000 miles per belt. And mine had like 180,000 miles when I bought it, like most of my vehicles have had when I buy them. And so just for peace of mind, I need to do that. But it's an expensive job if you take it somewhere for a mechanic to do it. And so I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do it myself. And what I did was I went through YouTube. I watched the video about 3 or 4 times. I wrote out verbatim what this guy's process was. I listed out every single tool he listed that he used. And then when I went to my brother's shop, I borrowed his shop to do this and his lift and everything. I had a table and I laid out every single socket, every tool, every wrench, everything, along with my instructions over here. I am an instruction person because I hate doing things twice. And I watched the video, so I knew the process in my head. I had the process listed out in steps, and I had everything laid out. And because of that, I was able to do that job in what they call book time, which is mechanic speak for what they have a book that tells them how many hours a job should take, and that's what they charge you for. They make their best money when they can do a job before book time, but book time is like the maximum amount of time that a mechanic should take to do whatever job it is. And so the timing belt on a GX 470 or a 4Runner V8 4.7 V8 is 6 hours. And because I did all that, not being a mechanic, I'm mechanically inclined. My whole family's a bunch of gearheads, and so it's kind of like in me. But I'm not a mechanic. I'm not like my brother. I'm not like either of them, and not that good. But I was able to do that job within book time at 6 hours myself. I think I had my brother help me like do the tensioner on the timing belt or something like that, or the main bolt on the crank bolt, I think is what I had him help me with. But for the most part, I did it by myself in 6 hours, and not being somebody who does it every week and whatever, because I had a plan. I pre-decided what I was going to do. I knew the process. I had all the tools laid out. I had a place for all my parts I'd be taking off. I had bins everywhere, and like it was just completely organized, all prioritized, all that kind of stuff, right? And so that made me be able to accomplish that goal in the time it should have taken any mechanic to do it. And I was able to do that. Now, switch to last week when I did my wife's brakes on her van, a job that should not have taken me, any amount of time. Really, it should have been like 30 minutes to an hour on either side max. And it took me about 2.5, 3 hours. Mainly because they gave me the wrong pads. I had to go back and get new ones. But secondly, because I didn't lay out the tools. And so my tools are like under the house. I have to go in there and get them out and figure out which one I want to get. And I didn't go through the video. I didn't go and pick out all the things. I kind of just guessed at what I would need. And I had to get up, go back, get another tool, come back. Get up, go back, get another tool, come back. And that made that job a whole lot harder. And what happens many times when we set goals is that we don't take the time beforehand to plan for problems that will arise, issues that will come up, and we don't pre-decide how we're going to do certain things. We don't position ourselves well enough to make our goals successful. And then we think intensity is going to carry us through it, but we end up quitting, and consistency is lost on us, right? So how do we do that? And with just one picture, as I said there, where you lay out all your stuff, you know what the process is going to be, you lay out your tools, and then you're able to go ahead and do it. Same thing it says here in Proverbs 24:27, basically preparing your work outside is laying out all the timber, laying out your tools, and it says make yourself fit, so you're getting the pieces that can fit together before you even put the house up. And it says you can build your house, right? That's what Proverbs 24:27 says. You're pre-planning, you're pre-deciding, and you're prioritizing, and everything's ready, and you're positioning yourself for success. Then you just have to do it, right? And that's what with that timing green belt job. Once it was all laid out, there was nothing to it but to do it. Right? That's like something I used to always say whenever we were working on stuff, especially as contracting. I was like, look, there's nothing to it but to do it. It's going to take a week, but there's nothing to it but just to get started. And we know the process, we know the steps, we know how long it takes. And you can just do it when you know what you're doing. And if you don't know what you're doing, and you educate yourself enough to be able to get started, and then you kind of you set yourself up for success when you learn the process, you prepare your work outside, make it fit in the field. So what does that look like in other places, right? Because not all of you are going to be building a house or fixing a vehicle or whatever. Let's just do working out, because that's a big thing everybody wants to do, but no one ever seems to be able to do it. And even me and myself, and I have other priorities now than working out, which is why I don't do it a whole lot. But let's use that as an example. As I said, you get really intense, you go and buy all this stuff, and then you only go 3 times in January, and you quit, and you're spending money all year on a gym membership that you never use, right? What you need to do is decide which days you know that would be the easiest day. You have to remove as much friction as possible, right? That's what pre-deciding and positioning yourself does. You prioritize it. You say, I want my health to be better. That's your priority. You have to pre-decide what day is the easiest day for me to do it. 2 days, whatever it is. You know how much time it is, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour, maybe 20 minutes. Maybe that's all you have. Whatever it is, it doesn't really matter, because any workout's better than no workout. And so you plan it out. And you have to say, if I'm going to work out on Tuesday from, say, 6:30, 7:30, so you have enough time to get to work, right? You know, if I'm going to be at a gym at 6:30, I have to leave my house at 6 probably, which means I have to get up at 5:30, right? If I'm going to get up at 5:30, I need to go to bed at a certain amount of time to at least get 7 hours, 6.5, 7 hours of sleep, right? You may not get 8 unless you go to bed really early. If you want to do that, you can. But the point is, you have to pre-decide. If tomorrow's workout day, then tonight is workout night. Meaning, I'm not going to work out tonight, but I'm going to go to sleep earlier than I normally would, so I can get up earlier than I normally would. I will also set up my bag the day before. Whatever my clothes are for whatever job I'm going to after I work out, I'm going to have that set up. Those things are going to be in my truck. Everything's in my truck, or except for my workout clothes, so I'm probably going to change into those. My workout clothes are laid out beside my bed. My shoes are there, my pants or shorts or whatever I'm wearing are there, my hoodie. I always wear a hoodie when I work out. So everything's there. What I'm getting changed into immediately upon waking up. If I'm going to eat before I leave, that food's already in the fridge, just needs to be warmed up. Any food I'm taking with me, say, because working out, you should be dieting too, whatever food I'm going to eat that day is already in a bag, ready in the fridge to go into my cooler bag, or in a cooler bag in the fridge, even better. Every single piece, as it says here, is prepared beforehand, outside. It's prepared outside of the time where the goal has to be done. Everything's pre-decided. When I wake up, it's almost frictionless. I roll out of bed, I put on the clothes, brush your teeth, comb your hair, whatever you're doing. Make sure your AirPods are charged the night before. Make your phone's charged the night before. Make sure your pre-workout, if that's something you do. I don't. I hate them, but if you are doing that, or your creatine or whatever, make sure it's in the bottle already. Or if your whey protein's already in the bottle, you don't have to open it up and scoop it out and put it over. Everything that you can possibly do the night before, do that. So that the day of, you can wake up and just get dressed, walk out the door to the gym, and know everything's already done. That's what pre-deciding and positioning yourself does for you. That's how your goals get accomplished. If it's financial, you know that when you get paid, there are certain bills. They may not be due right now, but they'll be due in a week and a half, especially if you get paid not every week. You get paid every 2 weeks, or you get paid every month. You have bills that will come up. And so as soon as you get paid, this money is marked as already being spent. You pre-decide, I will not spend this money, because I know if I do, I won't have enough money to pay for groceries or gas or whatever, and it's going to go on a credit card, and it's going to make things even worse. And that cycle just keeps on going until you have thousands and thousands of dollars worth of debt, because you never disciplined yourself. When you get paid, your pre-decision is, I am going to set this money aside, and that positions you so that when that bill comes up, you don't worry about it. I know the money's there. Boom, it's paid. I don't have to put on a credit card. I don't have to put myself further in debt, or whatever it might be. In my sense right now, one of my top priority now is my spiritual walk, because just being completely open and transparent, we're talking about real life here, right? This is Real Life and Godliness Podcast, so I have to be real. It has not been what it should be. And I need to read more, pray more, or really I need to pray more in priorities. I need to pray more, study more, write more, and then read outside of the Bible more. Those things, like my spiritual into my intellectual, right? It's those that's like the priority. It starts over here and it goes into that. And so I have had to prioritize that over top of physical working out. It doesn't mean I don't do anything. I just make sure I make my own food. So I eat right, and I walk every day that I can. And if I'm in my office and I can't get out, I usually do, a few things in here, some push-ups or some movement, something, right? It's not top priority. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist, but if I have realized that I cannot shove as much time as I need, spiritually speaking, into the morning and do an hour workout like I was doing. I had to pick one or the other. And a lot of times, I'm going to be straight up honest, I would do the physical part, and then whatever time was left over would be my spiritual part. And that's just wrong. It was wrong, and I was convicted about it, and I knew that needed to change. And so I flipped that, and now instead, it's the spiritual and the intellectual that gets prioritized, and whatever time I have left, that's where the physical comes in. And to be honest, most of our health things are really dietary anyways. And so if you just take the time with your diet, your workout could be minimal unless you're trying to gain or whatever. And you can run for 20 minutes a day and that's 20 minutes. It's not like all day. You don't have to go an hour workout, or if you want to do a couple push-ups, 50 push-ups or sit-ups or whatever it is, those things, it doesn't take that long unless you're trying to gain. And obviously that was always my goal, but it came and interfered with the top priority of my spiritual walk. Number one, because my spiritual walk affects my marriage and my kids. That's those are the two top priorities there. But number three, it affects my ministry and my future. Everything that I want to do in my life, everything that's ahead of me, everything I can see, all those things are affected by my spiritual walk and my intellectual really pursuits as well. And so those have to be prioritized over gains. Let's put it that way. Not necessarily over my physical health. My physical health is maintained by diet and the base and walking and doing the things that I can do where I'm at. It's like the other podcast I said, where you do what you can from where you are. And that's the same thing here. But in order to do that, I had to prioritize sleep. I want to get up at 5. Right now, I think I'm getting up at 6, so I can leave and be at my office probably about 6:45 or 7. So I have an hour and a half of time to pray, to study, to read, to do whatever I'm doing, beforehand. It's just easier to do at my office. I'm not interrupted or whatever. And so in order to do that, I have made it a priority to go to bed earlier the day before, to have my clothes laid out the day before, so that when I wake up, I don't have to waste time trying to decide what I'm going to wear. I get dressed, brush my teeth, get all that stuff done. My food's already ready to go in there. So that's the diet part. As I said, health is still a priority. It's just not top. As far as over spiritual, and I grab it and I walk out the door, and my total time at my house is like 10 to 15 minutes after I wake up. And so that gives me the flexibility and the time necessary to get to work and to do that. And you have to pre-decide. You prioritize first, you pre-decide how that's going to work, and then you position yourself by removing as much friction as possible. And then your goals are much more attainable. And that's what basically Proverbs 24 says here. Prepare your work outside, before you even get to where the goal needs to happen. Make sure you have a plan for how that goal is going to be accomplished. And then make it fit for yourself. Pack your bags, pack your lunch, get your finances, in order, your categories, your envelopes, or however you want to do that. And then do it. And same thing spiritually, physically, whatever goal you need to do. Make sure where it falls in priority with the rest of your life. Make time for it if it's a top priority. Obviously, pre-decide when that's going to happen, essentially. And then position yourself to remove as much friction as possible. And that makes it much more attainable. Hopefully that makes sense. This is a little bit shorter than most of them, but that is pretty much it. I made another one and it was really convoluted, so I just had to remake this one. So hopefully that you understand that, and that's helpful for you. It's been helpful for me, especially as I'm going into this time. I'm really headed into a time of intense spiritual, working out. Essentially, that's the best way to explain it. I have come to realize that there are certain answers I need. There are certain things that I am slack on, and there are certain things that have to be tightened up. And if I don't do it now, the Spirit has really convicted me that I will miss some sort of opportunity. There's going to be something that it's going to mess up. It's going to affect. And when you get that kind of urging in your life, you better take it, because if there's too many people I know who have sat around and wasted time when they should have been prioritizing, should have been working, should have been doing certain things in their life, and they just end up failures. And there's really no other way to describe it. And man, I'm telling you what, I'm not going to be a failure, no matter what. And you don't need to be either. But it takes some intentional prioritizing, predeciding, and positioning. If you can do that, then you can find consistency. And it may not always look the best. It may not always look intense. It may not be shown, maybe not everybody sees it, but that's not the important part. Consistency is better than intensity, and consistency requires a plan, and the plan needs to be prioritized, pre-decided, and positioned properly for it to work. This has been the For Real Life and Godliness Podcast with your host, as always, me, Pastor Will. And if you like this and it helps you, share it with somebody else, because if it helps you, it'll probably help them too. Rate us highly if you would. Add us to your playlist there on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. If you're on YouTube, subscribe, like, and all that good stuff. And until next time, just be real. Keep it real. I don't know. I need to find some kind of slogan, something to end this thing with. Whatever. See ya.